Hey, I'm Alex Rackle from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Timeless Journeys from Lirius Games. Timeless Journeys, the Italian Grand Tour, is a 1-to-5 player hand management Eurogame from Lirius Games. This here is a prototype, all rules and components have to change, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. Also, I will say, I do have a cat off over here right now who, there you saw a glimpse of him. I try keeping him out. I have a door, but he meows a lot and I feel bad, so he's here. But if I have to throw him off the table, lightly, that might just happen. I'm a sucker. I get it. I know. I'm sorry. Anyways, with that said, let's go ahead and dive into this game. This is a 1-to-5 player hand management Euro game in which you're going to be playing out across 5 rounds over here. You're going to be acting with a bunch of famous personas. In each round, you're going to be playing 5 cards, and those cards are going to determine all the actions you take. There's a lot going on here. It does work pretty simply as you ramp up into it. But let's start off with the difference between in-game points and end-game points, because I think that will give you a good idea of what's happening here. In-game, what you're trying to do is you're going to be trying to collect various ideas. Ideas are going to be these different types of tokens. There's 4 types over here. Let's grab the last one. We got, what am I missing? We got these over here. We have these 4 types of tokens, and you're going to be collecting these tokens in order to trade them in at these various cities on the board in order to get the points shown below it. So basically, gather tokens, trade them in, get points. That's the main way you're getting points in-game, but there are a few other ways. You can go to various cities. Sometimes a city over here, when you interact with this city over here, and we have these cities connecting to the various zones on the board, so these are the city tiles, but they all connect to the zones on the board. But certain cities will give you points. Interacting with certain people will give you points. Sometimes interacting with personas will give you points in the game. So there's all these small ways of getting points in-game. The main one is collect tokens and trade them in. At the end of the game, you're going to get points for 4 things, and this is where the bulk of your score is going to come in. Like, in the game, maybe if you have a really good in-game engine, maybe you'll get like 30 points, maybe I'm sure you can get higher, but somewhere in that range. But then you'll get like twice that much in endgame points. Endgame points are going to come from a few things. First of all, the number of cities you've actually interacted with, not just going there, we'll talk more about that, but interacting with those cities, you can get up to 18 points. Additionally, players are going to start the game with these journals over here, and as you collect the tokens, it's up to 8 different things you need. A person, a friend, a specific city, and then sets of ideas, and when you have these filled in, you get up to 28 points per filled in journal. That was the cat. I'm sorry about that. I'll figure things out. Anyways, you get 28 points for a filled journal. You also will get points for the values on the cards. You're going to start with a basic deck, but as you buy more cards, you get more points for those. And then lastly, you get points for this for the area control on these characters over here. Basically, as you interact with the famous characters who are moving around the board, you're going to get your own tokens on that board and be able to claim area control for having the most tokens, 5, 3, or 1 for first, second, or third points. Although there's only 5 in a 2-player game, the 1 is not in a 3-player game. Basically, you're going to be getting points over there. So now that you know what you're getting points for, because those are the main ways you're getting points in the game, how does the core engine operate? You're going to be operating from a deck of starter cards over here, cards that have your color on the back, and on your turn, you're going to play a card and do the thing. So for example, let's say I'm in this starting city right now, because we both start in Torino. If I start in Torino over here and I play this card, I get to talk to someone. I could either talk to one of the characters in the game, if I'm at their city, or alternatively, I get to talk to one of the people in that zone, so I can talk to one of these people, taking the bonus for talking to those people. That would be either an idea in this case, or writing down that idea in your journal. Just because you have an idea token does not mean it goes to your journal. You need to take a separate action to write it down. So I play this card and I either put a token into my journal, or I get to take the, or in that case I take the bust over there as the idea that I get. So again, playing this card lets you talk to a person or interact with a famous person if you're in their city. There's some additional nuance to some of these things. I'm not going to be going into every little rule detail, but a big part of this over here is you will have these correspondence tokens, and when you talk to somebody, you could add or move a correspondence token to them, which will help you talk to them as you move out of the city. You're establishing a pen pal, basically. Then on my next turn, when it comes back to me, I'll play another card. Let's say over here, I'll play this card over here, and I'll be able to move. So I'll move along this pathway, going to directly to Venezia over here, because I want to be able to do things over there. This is where the core fun of the game comes in, because now I'm going to play this card as my second card, and when you play a card of a color, of a category that you already have played, there's going to be 3 in your starting categories, there's an additional white color over here, and you can also play cards face down for an effect which counts as a new category. We also have a cat who will be going on the floor right now. But when you play cards in a category you've already played, you get to do both those cards, or on honestly as many of those cards as you've done in that category in any order you want. So for example, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the correspondence over here. I'm going to take the action of talking to this person, getting a painting token, and then I can go ahead and use this action to look back at a correspondence of a city that I'm not in. You only have 3 of those tokens, so choose wisely, but you can establish correspondence and basically be able to take those actions again, even when you're not there, although more specifically, you actually have to not be there in order to do that action. And then I'm going to go ahead and take a bust. So again, you can start to see these actions are going to cascade as you play cards of the same color. For my 4th card over here, I'll play this double movement over here because that will let me, well, it's not a double movement, it's a single movement, but it'll let me move again. So now I can go ahead and move. I can move from here. Let's move across over here, paying that 1 coin cost to the bank. There are travel costs in the game. And then activate my next card and move down to Bologna over here, where I can go ahead and start taking actions in that city. Now, I don't have any more blue cards, but for my 3rd action, this is where I have a choice. I can play a card face down, possibly to buy a card from the market over here, or to get 2 money, or as a movement, although that would be inefficient because I could just play this card as a movement, although there's still reasons to play a card face down because it gives you more categories of cards played. You've already seen that you're going to be rewarded for playing the same categories of cards again. Leaning into a category and taking cascading actions can be incredibly powerful, but you also benefit from playing different categories because at the end of the round, you're going to add a card to your hand based on the number of different categories that you've played. You can buy these cards in the round, but you can add one for free based on the number of different categories you've played, and leveling up to a 2 or 3 card in the first round of the game will give you a lot of flexibility to stronger, more powerful actions for the rest of the game. So in this case, though, I'm going to simply go with the 2 category. I really want to benefit from this over here, so I'm going to play this card over here, and that's going to allow me to interact with a city. So in Bologna over here, I can either take that idea token, or usually what's better is to look at the stack. In this case, there's only 1 left, but to look at the stack of these tokens in the city, and then pick one of these benefits. In this case, I got a coin and get to interact, and I can use this for whenever I want. I can use it right now, I can flip it over, or I can save it till when it's beneficial to do so. But then again, because of the cascading bonus of actions, I now get to take 2 movements, so now I'm going to move over here, paying those 2 coins as well, and now I'm already at Firenze. You can see in the first turn of the game, I've been able to go to Torino, Venezia, Bologna, and Firenze because of the nature of cascading actions. You have a lot of movement flexibility in this game. It can be incredibly satisfying to chain your cards together. That's basically what you're doing in this game. You're going to be playing cards and then cascading those cards to take more actions. I'll go through the remaining actions so you can see what they are. First of all, there's going to be these cards, just simply straight up give you ideas, which again, may not be that powerful on its own, but then when you combine it with a card like this, you get to activate them again. So again, you have that cascading thing going on in the game. And then we have this one over here. This is the action you take to when you are at a particular city. If I'm at Firenze, if I have these requisite idea tokens, I can use this to trade them in and put my marker on the board to go ahead and get those 8 points for that spot. The cities always have 2 spots, one with more points, one with less points, but this is the action that allows you to do that, and this action allows you to lodge those things into your travel journal, which again can be helpful for a variety of things, both at the end of the game, and also in this particular game, we're playing with Mary Shelley over here, and she rewards you if you end up in her city at the end of the turn. You're going to get points for every token you have in your travel journals, which could be a lot of points. If you've been building towards those points, or towards the end of the game, if you have all of them filled, that's 16 points just for being with Mary Shelley, in addition to the 28 per journal you're going to get. So there's a lot of incentive to try to pay attention to the abilities of the characters and play into those. So those are the core actions. Once again, a quick reminder of what you're going to be doing. You're going to be playing cards. You're going to be talking to the friends in various cities. Sometimes you'll be establishing correspondence. Other times you'll be taking their token. There's only a few of these in the game, but you do need these in order to have a friend slot in a complete travel journal. And there's never enough for all the players, so you do want to get them if you can. You'll be establishing a pen pal correspondence with those players and being able to activate them as you move to different cities. You'll be able to go ahead and interact with the city itself, gathering a stack of player tokens, picking one, and then gaining that benefit whenever it's convenient to do so, or alternatively taking the default action of the city. You'll be able to go ahead and trade in tokens to be able to get your coffee token down over there and be able to benefit from those. And you can do that in a city that you're in, or a city that you actually have correspondence with as well. So there's a little ways around that. You'll be getting various ideas and then writing things down in your travel journals. And then at the end of the round, you'll be going ahead and adding a card to your hand from these levels 1, 2, or 3, based on having played 2 different, 3 different, or 4 different categories of cards. And a reminder, you only start with 3 categories, but you can play a card face down, which counts as its own category, and you can play that either for 2 money, or to move, or to buy a card for its listed costs 0, 2, or 5. And so there are reasons. If in turn 1, if in the first round of the game, you buy a level 2 card and you get that into your hand, and that means you also now have 4 card categories you've played, and you add a level 3 to your hand at the end of the round, you might not be getting Cascading Actions round 1, but you'll be getting a very strong hand to play into and go through the rest of the game. Those are the basics of the game. The last thing I'll really cover over here is that at the end of the game, you're going to be getting points for your travel journal, as we talked about already. There are a variety of effects on these tokens. I didn't really go into them, but when you interact with a special character, you choose a specific token from your pool, and you get to get the benefits of that token as well as the benefit of that spot on the board. And then you also have a variety of special characters that impact the way the game changes. For example, over here with Dickens, you can pay a coin to take certain actions at the city he's in, even though it's not the city you're in. Alternatively, with Lord Byron over here, you can pay 3 coins to jump to a city, and Mary Shelley over here, you want to be able to end the round in her city to just get extra points for them. So those characters, there's a variety of them. I think there's 12 if I'm not mistaken, but they just give you more ways. You can mix and match them, you can draft them with other characters. There's all ways you can choose them, but they will change up the way the game plays. That is how you play Timeless Journeys, or at least a basic overview of it, which means it's time to get into my review of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, and this game is a brain burner. There's a lot going on as you try to optimize your actions in this game, but the thing is you have to consider so many different things. To a certain extent, at the beginning of the game, or at least early on in the game, you have to pick a lane and go with it. Because if you are trying to fill your travel journals, that could be 56 points. In a game that an endgame score generally might be around that 100-point range, getting 56 points for 2 filled travel journals could be huge, but you really need to build your hand and your actions around that. Alternatively, you want to start looking at the place on the board. You can get 17 points down over here if you get the right set of 5 tokens and trade them in, but that means you need to build up on movement, because you need to get down to Palermo. You need to get those actions and those tokens. So you really are trying to think through what you want to do. And keeping in mind, putting tokens in your travel journal versus trading them on the board, there's only so many tokens you can get. Maybe you want to fill in 1 travel journal and go ahead and invest towards those spots on the board. Maybe you want to go completely for spots on the board. There's so many things you can do, but you can't do everything, so you have to pick a lane and you have to work with it, and the game, like I said already, is brain burnery. There's a lot to consider. Do you play into a set color of cards, cascading those actions, buying more cards to get, 5 purples in a round can be a ton of tokens and lodging things down. There's so much you can do with a hand of 5 purple. But also, if you don't branch out, you're not going to be able to build towards that hand. So you really want to play different categories of cards, but you also want to lean into the same category at the same time, and that's a choice. You have to pick a lane, and you have to figure out when you pick a lane. Sure, the last round of the game, you almost certainly want to go directly for leaning into colors, but when do you make that pivot? That's going to come down to your playstyle, what's happening on the board, what the other players are doing, what they're going for. There's a lot to consider as you take these actions and as you build out your hand, because you start with a basic hand that's nearly identical to the other players, nearly identical. There's some small changes, but after that, the way you choose to build out your hand is going to choose your direction in the game, and that means every choice you make early on has such ramifications, such cascading ramifications as you go through this. The other characters you have in the game, those special characters, they completely mix up and change the experience. I've played with a few sets by now. I actually think I've played with Mary Shelley every time I've played, incidentally, although I really should play a game without her. The problem is I've let other players choose who goes into the game, or we did randomly I played with Mary Shelley every single time, but I played with a variety of combinations of characters, and that has led to a very different experience. Being able to jump around to where Lord Byron is, that completely changes the way the game goes. That last round of the game, he's going to be in Palermo. Palermo is one of the hardest places to get to. You either have to take a shorter route paying 6 coins or a longer route paying 3 coins. Either way, there's a lot of actions to get there, and so planning around a late-term investment into Palermo for those tokens, you really need to plan around that. But you also can just look at the board and understand that later in the game, Lord Byron's going to be there, so if you save up those 3 coins and jump there on that last round, the characters drastically change the way you interact with the game. They are small aspects to them, but they do drastically change the way you engage with it. And so the variety of the characters, the variety of the tokens, because there's a whole bunch of city tokens, and unless you're playing at max player count, I think even at max player count, I think there's 6 city tokens for each city if I recall correctly, and you're playing with a number of tokens depending on the player count. So if you're playing a 3-player game, you're playing with 3 out of 6 rewards, you don't know what you're going to get, and that provides variability. These tokens as well, I believe there's 12 of them if I recall correctly, you're only going to be using 8 of those 12, and you do have the better ones in the lower cities because they are harder to get to, although again, Lord Byron is going to change the way you do that. You can jump to Roma in turn 3 and already be down there without having to spend a lot of actions on movement. But the variety of these actions and the way they are going to be both the 8 out of the 12 that are in the game, as well as the way they are set up, is once again going to change the game you're playing. And so there is so much variability to the default game setup, the characters that will come out, even this main board over here, the Gazette board that you're using over here. There are a variety of different boards, and they are double-sided, giving you different combinations of again, what benefits you're getting from those boards, where the characters are going to be jumping to. And so you never know, just because you're playing with Lord Byron, it's only on board A that he's going to be in Palermo in round 5, and it's depending on which column he could have been in. So although I guess 2 out of those 3 columns would have been there in round in the board A. There's a lot of variability to the experience. There's a lot of brain burning to the experience. There's a lot of ways to get those victory points, and there's a lot of tension between how you play and build out your hand, as opposed to branching out versus concentrating heavily on a color. Also, one thing that should not be overlooked, but I definitely overlooked my first game, is the points on these cards sometimes seem like they're not a ton. Like, you know, if you have a hand of 8 cards, you do have a limit of 8 cards, by the way. If you have a hand of 8 cards and they're worth 1 or 2 points per card, that's like, you know, 8 to 16 points from cards. But some of these cards can give you chunks of points. Most of them are going to give you 1 to 2 points, but there are some cards that can give you like 8 points per card if you play them right. And so paying attention to the points in the bottom of the card, which I very much overlooked the first game, is something that can give you a lot of points if you lean into those. You can easily end up with a hand of 30 points if you specifically and intentionally play into that hand. As far as things I don't like in the game, the biggest thing I have, let's start with the small thing. The small thing I have is the structured movement cycle on the board. The fact that you almost always are, and again, Lord Byron is almost an exception to that, but you almost are always having a progressive movement down this board. And that is natural based on the way the game's set up, and the game gives you higher rewarded territories. The cities over here are slightly better in terms of the benefits they give you, in terms of the action tokens, and so there is an incentive to make your way down here, but it's a small complaint that every game has that same cycle of you start at the top, and you slowly work your way to the bottom. How much to the bottom? This definitely changes depending on what you're doing in the game, but it has that general structure. And the game incentivizes you to go to all the cities with 18 points, although you don't want to lean too much into that unless it's beneficial for other reasons. But the game does have a structured way the game progresses as far as the movement, which to me, a board with movement like this, I want to feel like it's open, and it's open-ish, but you are mostly working your way down slowly. That's a very small complaint. The bigger complaint I have against the game, and it is a big complaint in the feeling I get out of it, but I think that the fact that you buy so few cards in this game, you get 1 for free at the end of each round, and then you can also buy them, although you're not going to be doing that too often, at least in my experience, maybe 3, maybe 4 times, although if you buy the cards that let you buy cards, maybe a little more often, but you're buying a few cards across the course of the game, and the problem is you only have 5 rounds, which means you only have so much time to play into those cards, and my bigger problem with that is that because of the fact that the game is structured by rewarding you for branching out into different categories, but then also to play cards into the same category, this is a game that only has 5 rounds, that you're buying cards you can only benefit from for 5 rounds, and you are split in your focus as to how to benefit from those cards. So you buy this really cool Cascading card that will, like, you know, a level 3 card over here, purple, you're able to benefit from multiple times, but the problem is you're also still trying to get more cards, so the first 2-3 rounds of the game, you're trying to do different categories instead of the same category. So it's not the fact that you only have 5 rounds to benefit from the cards. Some other games I love do the same thing with only 5 rounds and only 5 rounds to benefit, and you still get a lot done. I think to me, specifically, the thing that holds back for me is the fact that I am both torn in terms of branching out my cards versus cascading it to a single lane, and I'm doing that. I have the split focus and still only 5 rounds to manage that split focus. It means that every time I get a card, I have this feeling and sense that I'm not getting as much as I want out of it. You still should do it. You should absolutely still do it. It's worth it. But I think that I felt more constricted. The cards offered me a promise and a potential, and my ability to actually see that I felt more constricted in as I played through the game. So that's the biggest thing that holds the game back for me a bit, the wanting to get more out of each card purchase versus that split focus of things. As far as I can see others not liking, first of all, the game is very analysis paralysis prone, it's very AP prone. This is a game that there's a lot to think about. There's absolutely, in all my games, I've had a lot of players being like, wait a second, can I have done that instead? And in my group, we say yes, unless it changes things dramatically. But there's a lot of rethinking and readjusting, and you took that token, but now instead you realize that you actually aren't going to be able to finish your travel journal, so instead you're trying to get these 17 points down here. So there's a lot of weighing up each action and how it's going to reward you. Should you have put correspondence in that person or that one? Should you have moved the correspondence? Which card should you have played? There's a lot of these moments in the game, at least in my experience with it. I think it is a very AP prone game because of how brain burnery it is. I'll also say that the other thing I can see others not liking is the fact that This game is very deterministic in how it works. Almost everything you do is deterministic. You can plan around what you see. Sure, you don't know what cards are going to come out, but you can plan around what you see on the board. The one thing that isn't is these tokens over here. In a game that is so planning based, it's the one wild card you have. Do you for example, I had a game where I took the one coin here because I needed one coin. But on these tokens over here, when I flipped it over later, there was a 2-coin token over there, and I didn't know that. And so it's not a big deal, because at the end of the day, I don't mind that small degree of variability. But in a game that's so deterministic, you might like that deterministicness, and then find that you have this one element that's not, that feels a little more chaotic, and that might hold it back for you. Again, this is not a problem for me. What might be a problem for you. As far as final thoughts on this game, I overall very much enjoyed this one. The only real complaint I have, the journey aspect, minor thing, the only real complaint I have is the fact that I really, really feel like the 5 rounds and the way your split focus is holds back the ability to fully benefit from the cards. I'm still playing with strategies in this game. I have definitely done the first turn strategy where round 1 I'm able to both buy a 5-coin cost and get a 5-coin card at the end of the round. That has proven to be incredibly powerful. It's going directly into round 2 with having those cards. And in round 1, you can already have played that first card, so it can be very strong to do that. I haven't fully leaned into just going into one color from the very beginning and never trying to get those higher value cards. There's a lot of ways you can play it, and the timing of when you split focus, so I'm still very much in the experimental phase of it, but every game I feel a bit like I want to benefit from these cards more than I actively am able to do so. That's the one thing holding it back for me. So overall, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. It is very charming. The brain-burning experience is very satisfying. The variable characters change up the game. There are some small things that can improve it for me, but overall, at least where it is right now, I am very much enjoying the overall puzzle of Timeless Journeys. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out Lost Ruins of Arnak. That's another game that, for example, is only 5 rounds of play and the cards you get, but for every reason, both because you're able to get more cards and because of the fact that, again, your focus isn't really split in the way you play those cards, I enjoyed that engine building from those cards a bit more. But Lost Ruins of Arnak is an absolute phenomenal game. Highly recommend that one. And then the game that this actually felt the most similar to for me is Lacrimosa. Lacrimosa also has that both the phase, the historical timeline of it, as well as the movement around the board, as well as the way you have a hand of cards and you are getting into those stronger cards as you go. It felt a lot of similar vibes to Lacrimosa between that and Timeless Journeys. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful in some way, and as always, I hope you have a good one.